Welcome to 2 Point Conversion Podcast, the last Monday in the month of June. And I am blessed to have the Monday Mommy and Kyle at Sinra Says to be the special guest tonight, special host, special guest. We will talk a little bit about a little bit of everything. I'm going to be Kyle because, I just found out he's a high school teacher today, and it is awesome. And I want to start with introductions. Jennifer, since I know the least about you, why don't you introduce yourself, please, and thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. My last name is Akins. It looks like Eakins, but it's Akins. What do you want to know? I don't know. It's weird to say like an intro, but yeah.
I want to know everything. I want to know about your podcast. I want to know what you do in Wheat Ridge. I want to know what your song is. I want to know everything.
Okay. Sounds good. I've been I've been at 4 for 4 now for 6 seasons. I've been in the sports world for about 2 decades. It is my full-time job. It is all I do, which is super fun. I'll give you my walk-up song is "Let's Get Down to Business," which is it's actually a Vic Chestnut song, but Widespread Panic covers it. And Widespread Panic was just here in Denver at Red Rocks for the last 3 nights. Actually, 4 nights, because they were at the Mission Ballroom on Thursday, and then 3 nights at Red Rocks. So I'm in that Widespread Panic mode. So my walk-up song is "Let's Get Down to Business."
Nice. You're also coming in a little fuzzy. I'm not sure why.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a lot of
audio fuzzy or video?
No, visual fuzzy.
Yeah, I was going to say audio. You sound perfectly clear. So that's good there. So for the podcast listeners, they're like, oh, there's no effect at all. But
that's weird. I will try not to move.
Okay,
maybe that's it.
You should move as much as possible, like move around. Kyle, this Kyle, because I'm just going to use his name today, is one of my favorite people at Going for 2 Live. Don't tell anyone else. Him and the B League, they're 2 of my favorites. Kyle, tell us everything about you and Canada. Kyle was in Canada, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Canada. I love being Canadian. It's awesome. I know Canada Day's coming this week, and I know Canadian content-wise, we're doing a best ball tournament. Canadian fantasy football aficionados. I know one of the organizers is actually one of our. I guess sponsors, but certainly helpful entities that collaborate with Going for 2. Will Harris, who is a co-founder of Viridian Global. That's all the great merch we have, the Going for 2 store. And also these great Scott Fishbowl shirts. Viridian Global's handling them as well. This one done in Zeppelin style. I've got a few more on the way. So Will Harris organizing this best ball tournament. It's going to be held on Canada Day, or at least that's when the drafts are going to start. 6 divisions in each, labeled after an original 6 NHL team. I know the Stanley Cup Finals are starting tonight, Game 1, so maybe a bit of a homage to that. I am a Detroit Red Wings fan, so happy to get into that division. So that'll be fun. So look for that on Twitter, at Senra Says. Co-host the Full Press Fantasy Pod. Just actually dropped our latest episode today. For those watching live, recent episode with Bob Lung to talk about his consistency guide. I believe, Gladys, you had Bob on this show maybe about a month ago. So Bob's always great. I mean, we've been doing the Full Press Fantasy Pod for 3 years, and he's been on every season talking about the consistency guide, bringing great insights. So definitely check that out at FPC_fantasy pod.
What's your walk-up song?
So I took this very literally, although I do think it's a good walk-up song. It's the song Walk by Pantera. Pretty intimidating, right? I mean, walk-up song, whether it's, baseball pitcher or wrestler, boxer, you want to intimidate your opponents, psychological warfare. And I think, Pantera, heavy metal, the screaming sounds of Phil Anselmo, and of course, Dimebag's sweet solo. So, I'll go with Walk by Pantera.
That's awesome. I just met a little puppy named Pantera today. Little German Shepherd puppy. It all works. All right, we're going to get right into it because of the Scott Fishbowl, which both of you are in. Kyle, you're in the Incubus division, and Jennifer, you're in the Grateful Dead, right?
Yes, correct.
Jennifer, did you pick the 12 spot, or were you assigned it?
I picked the 12.
Okay, let's start right there. Let's start with, why did you pick the 12 spot? And what's your favorite line from a Grateful Dead song?
Okay, I'll start with the line, just so then we can get into actual Scott Fishbowl chatter. So it's not necessarily my favorite line or my favorite song, but it makes me laugh. So there's a song called Looks Like Rain, and there's a line that says, "Did you ever waken to the sound of street cats making love?" And it just makes me laugh because if you guys have ever heard cats having sex, it's horrendous. It's the worst noise in the entire world. You don't know if they're fighting, if they're having sex, or what. So that line always makes me laugh when I hear it because it's such a horrific sound. If you've ever and it's always in the middle of the night too. You get woken to that screeching, horrific. You're like, what is going on? And then you finally realize, oh yeah, that's what's happening. So that's that. And then back to why I picked the 12. In any kind of league, I like to be on turns. I like to be able to start runs and all that. I think that's fun. But this year specifically, I picked the 12 for that third round reversal. I want to have the 112, the 201, and then the 301. So that was why I went with 12.
Did you play last year?
I did. This will be my 6th year in the Scott Fishbowl.
Nice. Where did you pick last year?
I actually was in the 12 last year as well. It did not work out well for me. I had a very bad season, but I figured, I'd roll the dice again and go with the 12. I've been kind of all over the place. He used to not let us pick anything. Back in the day, you could not pick divisions. You could not pick slots. You just got what you got, and you didn't throw a fit, that kiddie expression. But, so I've been kind of all over the place in Scott Fishbowl, but I like to be on the turn, and I figured this year with that third round reversal, I'd rather be the 12 than the 1.
Okay. And Kyle, you're in the Incubus division, and you picked number 8. You did pick that one. So tell us your favorite Incubus song or line from a song, and why your strategy for picking the number 8 spot.
Well, I think first off, the Scott Fishbowl is incredible, and I think a Grateful Dead line actually does kind of the evolution of it does kind of signify really well what a long strange trip it's been, and we just keep trucking along.
You can keep going all night with those, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll stick to Incubus though. That is the where I am assigned. So yeah, as for why I chose 8, so first off, Incubus has an album called 8, so I literally just I'll be the 108. I wasn't sure if anyone else would pick it, and apparently no one did, so it was the unique spot there. With the third round reversal, it does seem you would want 107 later being the back half of the first does seem like a bit of an advantage, but I think around the middle seems good in terms of maybe expecting what you get in the first and can sort of telegraph what you'll get in the rounds after. I kind of like being 108, but again, it really had no football strategy part why I chose it, just the album name. But I love Incubus, so I guess that's the next question. Sorry, Gladys.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Go ahead. Hey, Garrison, much love to you too.
What up, G?
G. Yeah, and I know he changed his handle, and I didn't know who he was for a while. I need to know, so the Scott Fishbowl and the Warrior Bowl, I believe, have the same rules. What were the 3 strategies, Kyle, we'll start with you, or rule changes that changed your strategy in both of those, or in the Scott Fishbowl specifically? So
change the strategy, I don't know if it's necessarily appropriate, because my first strategy is always look at the scoring settings and let that be the determiner of how I'm going to build the team. So that right. in that sense, that's how I always start from anyway. But looking at that, what's unique about this scoring settings, I think, is the way quarterbacks score. I think it's the first thing that's really remarkable. And in that, there are negative points for incompletions and sacks, positive points for completions. So this really does seem like it's creating a line that the better quarterbacks are going to score better quality NFL quarterbacks. It's kind of giving a quantitative aspect to back play. So the good quarterbacks should get pushed up, and actually the worst quarterbacks will be hurt. I mean, it's a super flex, but you'll get to the point where you might not want to play a quarterback if they're going to be taking a lot of sacks or they're not playing so great, and you're not getting the touchdowns to make up for those negative points. You might actually be better off playing a non-quarterback in the super flex spot. So I think it separates the quarterback tiers for me.
Jennifer, what about you?
Those of you out there who know me and those who don't, you'll learn now. I'm a big pro kicker person. I am always about the kicker. I love a good kicker. And so this year I'm excited to have kickers in there because I think They provide an advantage from a week-to-week basis, depending on matchup. But I also think the whole anti-kicker brigade is so big and so strong that I'm kind of excited that people are going to blow them off, and they're going to take these random guys that may get 8 touches throughout, the whole season instead of a kicker. And when you look at the actual points from last year, like they scored, some kickers scored the same as tight end 2s, as RB3s. And so people are going to be taking these guys in the 18th round and higher that may not even see the field, and yet they're going to ignore kickers just because they hate kickers. So I'm kind of excited about that.
It's interesting. You briefly touched on it, Jennifer, that neither of you said anything about the tight end premium part, which the chat group that I'm in for the pick that I have is, and that's all they're about, is if there's going to be a tight end that falls to that particular position. So what are your feelings on tight ends, Jennifer?
I think the premium is good for a bit, but I think once you start getting into the the later into those tight end 2s and 3s, I don't think it really is that much more of an advantage when you look at the numbers from season to season. I think getting an elite tight end is a really good thing. I think that the top 3 tight ends are going to go in the very top of the first round, if not the first round in general. I don't think that you're going to see, Kittle or Waller fall to that second round like they maybe would in other drafts. But I think once you get to kind of the middle of the pack, I don't know for me personally that I'm going to reach for, a Tyler Higbee just because he has premium over, more of a wide receiver or running back that I think could possibly score more or have more touches, more targets throughout the season.
So, and Jennifer, this is specifically to you. So if you had a choice between Tyler Higbee or Young Hoku, who would you pick?
Oh, God, it would depend on what round it is and everything, and I would have to actually look at the numbers. But I don't know. That's a great question, and I'm just going to go Koo just for the brand. But in reality, I'm not sure if I would really do that or not. I would have to actually look at the numbers. But for the brand, I'll go Koo for this.
Okay, well, we'll accept that. Kyle, what do you say about the tight end premium?
Well, I think Jen said it right. What it does is it pushes up the higher end tight ends because it's not only the extra half point per reception, but also the half point per first down. So the ones that are consistently getting first downs every game are just going to be so much better. At the top end, you're probably better off to have a Kelsey, Kittle, Waller than you are to have whoever receiver 1 is. But then as it goes down, the tight ends that are just touchdown dependent, they're not really catching that many passes where those reception bonuses aren't, and the first down bonuses aren't necessarily making enough of a difference. So yeah, I think that the importance of still trying to get the elite ones and not reaching in the middle tier, the tight end dead zone.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get an elite one, and I kind of go about this most drafts outside of maybe something like a 2 tight end format or when the premium's really extreme. But in this case, I'm either take a tight end early if I can get one in the first 4 rounds, great. If not, I'm probably waiting round 10, 11, 12 and see who's there. I think rather than that, I'd rather, fade the position, invest heavily at other positions, make sure my other positions are strength, and then, get that late tight end somewhere.
Well, okay. With that being said, with the 8th pick, not necessarily telling me who, all strategy depends on how the board's falling. I understand that. But with your 8th pick, what position are you targeting more so, or who do you hope falls to your 8th position?
So backs being pushed up, I think, in the fact that it's super flex. I'm looking at the top tier of quarterbacks, and I have a tier of 6. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, and Justin Herbert. If I can get one of those 6 at 108, that's who I'm taking. So obviously I got to have a little bit of leeway. If one of those 6 doesn't fall, then it's either Christian McCaffrey, Kelsey, get the RB1 or the tight end 1, get those elite players, or dip into that second tier quarterback, which would be, I guess, Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, but definitely not wide receiver. that's for sure the position I'm not going to go. I kind of feel like, especially with the scoring, if I don't get that top tier quarterback, I'll probably dip to that second tier and go either Wilson or Tannehill, likely. But maybe McCaffrey being there might be tempting enough. But we'll see how it falls. But I am really hoping for one of those top 6.
Jennifer, with the 12th pick, what position are you looking at, or who do you hope is falling that low? And you're going to get 2 picks after that.
Yeah, I get 2 picks, and I'm looking to get a quarterback as well. It would be great if one of those top guys fell. I'm probably in that second tier. And then I would take a top running back, or if one of those elite tight ends happens to be there, like if I could get, for example, like a Kyler Murray / Waller, that would be fantastic if those two happen to fall there. I doubt it, but if not, I'm sure that, depending on what – if so, like you're saying, if all those quarterbacks don't fall, then obviously people are taking running backs or something else. So then I would have to pivot and probably, I might even go 2 quarterbacks if both of them happen to be there, because I get another pick and at that 3rd round reversal. So just like Kyle said, I'm going to fade wide receiver for quite a while, as long as I can, and load up on quarterbacks and running backs and the elite tight ends if they're there, but. So yeah, I was pretty long-winded, but that's what I'm thinking about.
No, it's perfect. Are either of you in mock chats for your pick? Are you in chat groups for your pick?
I am. There's a 12 chat that I'm in. I had to mute it. It's out of control, and it's basically people just showing screenshots of their mocks, and I just can't. It's exhausting. And I actually don't do this year. I'm not doing any mocks because it's not realistic at all. Like, it's so not, because once the real Scott Fishbowl happens, there's so much panic and there's so many different runs, and it's never going to be the way you want it to be. So it's a total waste of time. But that's pretty much what the 12 chat is right now. It's just screenshots after screenshot of people's mocks, and everyone getting excited about things that are falling. I'm like, you're not going to get. I'm sorry, you're not getting Patrick Mahomes at the 12. It's not going to happen no matter what. So,
Kyle, are you in a mock for the 8? Oh, Kyle? I think we've lost. Yeah? Are you in the mock for the 8th or no?
I am. Yeah, I did join the Discord for the 8 today. Haven't really dove in too much yet, but just a quick, the way Discord, or sorry, not Discord, Slack. So many different applications. I really got caught up in the going for 2 Discord. Sorry, Jeff. So there's a Slack chat for the 108. Again, I just joined today, so I haven't really dove in too much yet. I know one thing I've been doing is Peter Howard's and also Addison Hayes, they have a sheet that they've done, an Excel sheet spreadsheet. And to get it, they'll give you access as long as you show proof of a donation of some sort, either to the Potathon, proof of buying some of the Scott Fishbowl shirts. I know Viridian Global, the proceeds from those shirts are going mostly towards charity. I think outside of the production cost to cover for them, everything else, they're not profiting. Everything else is going.
$11 from each shirt for Viridian. Yeah, is going to charity.
So so anyway, so I got that sheet from Peter Howard. Again, looking through that, just got that today. So so far dove in, and again, I think again, knowing the scoring, I'm actually having much more fun with my league chat, actually, the Incubus chat that we've been talking about, just the band itself, live performances, favorite songs. And I've really enjoyed that. And I think once the draft gets going, that should also be really fun. I recommend at least join your league chat. I think that'll be good. You can obviously discuss the music aspect behind whatever league you're in, because it can get quite overwhelming, as Jen said.
Yeah, I agree with Jen, because the chat I'm in, it's like screenshots of mock draft after mock draft, and people are getting. There's no way CMC is going to fall. There's no way Patrick Mahomes is going to fall, and yet in these mocks, which I'm not really sure what the point of doing a mock is if you're not actually realistically drafting, but in these mocks, people are falling that you just know you're not going to get. So I agree with you. I think mock drafts.
Sorry, Gladys. There's just one question, though. I do have for Jennifer, knowing how much you like kickers. And again, going for 2, our kind of almost official motto is to kind of be anti-kicker in general.
Oh, I know. Jeff and I have gone at it many times. But anyway.
So looking through the scoring, I noticed, -1 for a missed PAT. That seems kind of standard. And -3 for a missed field goal. Punishing heavy. To me, that seems like, is there almost like we were saying with tight end and even with quarterback, the divide between the good ones and the bad ones? Is that the case with the kickers? Like the really good kickers will score well, but the bad kickers will actually hurt you. Is that the case with the scoring?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. There's guys that are known for missing, like a Cody Parkey or something like that. I'm not going to take him, but I think for me, like with kickers in general, I'm a big proponent of streaming kickers. So my plan, and I don't know how the people in my division, I don't know if any of them are listening, and hopefully they're not. But my plan is to stream them in Scott Fishbowl as well, because for what I've over the years, I've written this kicker streaming calling for 6 years now for 4for4, and I've done a lot of research on it. And we look for implied team totals, we look for teams that are home favorites, all these things that come into play for matchups, and the data shows it. Like it actually, you can get a 10 to 15 point swing sometimes from a kicker, based on a matchup. So that's kind of my plan. Now, obviously, taking into account the negative for field goals, that's a little bit tough. So I may not, risk some of the guys that are not as strong. But guys like say a Jason Sanders who doesn't really miss. He's someone that will probably go, on the earlier side just because he doesn't. But I'm hoping to, I'm not going to go crazy. People keep joking around that I'm going to take like 15 kickers. No, I'll take a few, and then I'll hope to kind of stream throughout the season if I can on some of those, better matchups of the kickers that aren't taken. As I said, I'm hoping that a lot of people in my division are anti-kicker, because I know a lot of people, even in my 12 chat, there's people that are like, I'm not taking any kickers. It's stupid. It's too random, blah, blah, blah. And it's not random, but we can let people think that. And I'm hoping that that I can get some of the top kickers, and then hopefully stream some of the middle of the road guys that just happen to have really good matchups that week. Instead of, like I said, starting someone like I don't even know. I can't think of someone off the top of my head right now, but a guy that you're like a Byron Pringle that you're hoping has a couple catches, instead of starting a kicker that's going to use his leg that day at some point.
Wait, did I hear you right? Your plan is to draft more than one kicker?
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, not a lot, but yeah, I'd like to draft, I don't know, a few. I don't have a set number. It depends on how they fall. If for some reason, if people in my division aren't taking any, then yeah, I'll scoop up the top 4 or 5 at the end. Why not? The good thing about Scott Fishbowl, there are waivers. I mean, it's a cluster because there's a lot of, but there are waivers. It's not like best ball where you're stuck with the people you have. So, yeah, I do plan on taking several.
Like you're saying though, the matchups, right? Like picking the implied team totals, the home favorites, probably the dome teams, indoor teams, anyone playing inside. So if you're going to do that, you'd rather have multiple options to be able to play the matchups. If you make an early investment, you kind of get stuck on them. It does make sense if you are going to do it to go multiple kickers if the matchups are so important.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to draft them early. I'm not going to draft them before they should be taken. I mean, I'm definitely going to have depth at all my, the other positions first. I'm not going to jump in and grab a kicker early. But I mean, my plan is to take a few, and especially if, like I said, if I happen to see that nobody's taking them in my division, then yeah, I mean, I'll take all the top ones, because they're gonna outscore your wide receiver 6 and 7s every single week. Even the bad kickers, even the kickers that end up getting 5-6 points, they're still going to get more than some of these guys that you're going to have to roll out there during bye weeks.
Okay, I mean, I like it. I'm not
you don't have to listen. You don't have to like it. I've been fighting the fight by myself for a long time. There's a few more pro kicker people now in the industry than there used to be, but I've been fighting the fight by myself for a long time. It's okay.
No. I last year I took a kicker not in the Scott Fishbowl, but in a couple leagues, like in the 6th round, in the 6th and 5th round, because it was Koo, and I love him. But yeah,
he was the number 1 scoring kicker by quite a bit too. So
it did pay off. Well, that part paid off. The rest of my draft didn't. But anyway, so let's talk. Who not inclusive, not exclusively the Scott Fishbowl, but who are you fading in most of your leagues this year, regardless of that? Kyle.
I think a general way to say it is whoever's the wide receiver 1. I don't want to be the first one taking a wide receiver, right? So that means players go first round. Maybe a league like the Scott Fishbowl, you might not actually see any wide receivers go in the first round. We've already kind of mentioned kind of almost like an obvious fade. And I know a part of Peter Howard's data is also tracking some mock draft ADP, and it seems like in general, not often is our wide receivers going in the first round. So I think a specific player for redraft in particular, I think, is Kyle Pitts. I'm not liking him as the tight end 4 even in general, but certainly where he's going. I mean, if he's the tight end 4 and he's going in the 6th, 7th round, that's fine. But the fact he's being taken ahead of Hawkinson and Andrews, who has been a difference-making tight end in the past, getting close to the Kittle-Waller range. That seems too early for me from a redraft perspective. Really being drafted as a ceiling, and I don't like taking players at their ceiling, and it seems like no matter the format, but specifically in redraft, that's where Pitts is taken. So sorry if I took the obvious answer there, Jennifer.
No, it's funny you didn't, but that was actually my first thought when I saw that question. That was my first thought, and then I actually pivoted because I was like, you know what? But the thing is, it's not an obvious answer because there's a lot of people that love him. People are drooling over him, and when you look at historical data, like rookie tight ends are not successful in fantasy. There's been like one, and it was like Jeremy Shockey in whatever year that was. Like they're not successful, and people are like, I don't understand it. And listen, I'll eat crow if he's great, but I will have no Kyle Pitts this season. My person is actually DJ Chark. I feel like, his ADP, I mean, he's not super expensive, but I just feel like that offense is kind of still a question mark, right? You've got all new coaching staff, you've got a rookie quarterback. And I think from that offense, I would rather take Laviska Shenault like 2 rounds later, who has rushing ability also. I just don't think Chark has done anything that spectacular that people are all of a sudden anointing him as the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. I just don't know that that's really going to happen. So, from that offense, like I said, I would just rather take Shenault a couple rounds later, and I'm just not taking Chark.
Here's something that it wasn't on the question sheet. Sorry. But who is someone that you would like to have a piece of in every one of your leagues? Jennifer.
Gosh, that's a tough question. I could tell you people that I already have in almost every league, but, I'll just throw out Chris Carson because I love him and I always talk about him. So, he's always undervalued. I just saw a picture of him on Twitter the other day, super jacked, which I loved him before that anyway. So, I just love him. He's someone that, he plays so hard and he gets hurt, but he still plays. And, they're a run-heavy offense, and they always will be a run-heavy offense, and people seem to forget that. And every year, he's always like a 4th or 5th rounder, and it just doesn't make any sense because he is their running back 1. And, Pete Carroll loves him, the team loves him, but somehow fantasy every year decides that they don't. So I'm on board with him. I always try to grab him when I can.
He's like the cheapest workhorse every year.
I mean, right. He is. And somehow, and he does get hurt, but he still plays. Like when you look at the amount of games he's missed, it's not that many. And people are always like, oh, he's always hurt. Like, yeah, but he still busts out 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
It's pretty on par for the running back position, to be honest, in terms of games missed. So yeah, Carson's a good one for sure. Jennifer, you mentioned, okay, maybe the players I already have. My brain went there immediately. Like, who are my most rostered players? Right. I know a couple episodes of the 50 pod ago, I did that specifically for Dynasty. And there's one player, specifically a running back, that keeps coming up, and even in redraft. But really, I would say it's both of the Colts running backs. I love Jonathan Taylor, and I did a redraft league a couple weeks ago, and he fell to me, well, at least I view it, fell to me at the 108, which is funny because where I'm drafted Scott Fish. But yeah, so I thought that was pretty late for a top 3 back this year. But I also really like Nyheim Hines super late. Carson Wentz has shown to throw to the running backs at times. It's not, maybe not Phillip Rivers amount, what we've seen in the last few years. I think that's maybe a bit of a worry, but it's not unusual for him. He's not like a Fitzpatrick who's constantly going deep, constantly known to maybe hyper target his wide receivers. So I don't have that fear, and I also don't have a fear of any other running back on that depth chart. I know Marlon Mack coming off the Achilles. That's a really bad track record for really most football players, but certainly running backs coming off torn Achilles. So I don't really expect Marlon Mack to do much. I feel like this is maybe more of a rehab year. The Colts paid him just to, so that he could have access to the facility and rehab with. I don't really think he's going to be producing much on the field. And Deion Jackson, I love the rookie tape. And I was Michael Hasty the previous year, and like Jermichael Hasty went undrafted. So I don't. The Colts kind of said like he's they don't prioritize him. So I think most of the running back work is going to go to Taylor and Hines, and behind that offensive line, I think both could be very productive. And specifically Hines, I think really good value in the double digit rounds of drafts when he really should be closer in the mid rounds.
I want to go back to the Scott Fish Bowl for just a second and your strategy. So my understanding, the once you get out, if you get out of the first round, it's all on points. Does that impact how you're going to draft? Because it's not like you're not winning. I mean, it's different than a normal redraft league.
Yeah, maybe look for stacks a little more and know that when you get to those final weeks, like the total points are important. But actually, I think it's what the schedule is. The fact that those first round of that playoff round where you're having to just compete total points, week 14,
right.
And there's 4 teams on bye. So actually, the Scott Fish Bowl might be one where I'm a little more prone to fade Jonathan Taylor, Naeem Hines, because the Colts are one of those teams. Patriots, Dolphins, Colts, and I'm forgetting the fourth, but those might be teams where I'm looking to not draft as heavily from in the Scott Fish Bowl, specifically for that playoff bye, where like you said, Glass, once you get to those weeks, you want as many points as possible. So you want all hands on deck, really ready to score points. Not to say that I'd avoid them completely, but I would want them to be cheaper than at value. I wouldn't want to take them at their kind of ADP cost. I want them to be a little cheaper for me to invest in those teams.
You know, I don't know if you saw, but the way Scott does that is he adds that with your average point total for the season. So you're not totally screwed if half your team's on a bye in week 14. He worked it out to where you get that score, and then he also adds it to the average of your score for the whole season. So just keep that in mind. I mean, obviously, yeah.
By the way, Eagles are that other team. Sorry, Jennifer.
Well,
but yeah, good point with the average.
Yeah, so you're not completely screwed if you happen to have, a huge chunk of your team on a bye in week 14 or 15, whenever the byes are. I don't even know when they end this year. I'm so confused with the 17 weeks, and it's just, 14 is the end.
14 is the last one, so the only week it messed with. But yeah, like you said, not avoid entirely, but that's I love Jonathan Taylor, but that wouldn't be the league where I'm necessarily running to take him. Like from where I'm drafting, I guess if he comes around to the second, that's maybe on value. I might be tempted there, but we'll see. We'll see how the draft goes.
Jennifer, does it alter the way you're drafting the point accumulation for the playoff round?
Probably not. I just need to get through it's so hard. This league is so hard. It's funny because like I said, this will be my 6th year, and I think the first 2 I had the whole beginner's luck. I made the playoffs, and I've just done horrible the last few years. So I just want to be competitive and hope that I could get through. And if I get through, I get through. But I think I don't think I'm going to really change my draft strategy too much for that.
Kyle, did you've gotten through to the playoffs, right? When you played in the Fish Bowl?
No, a couple of years ago I joined and I almost got through. I had a winning record 7-5, which was the record cutoff, and then I think the points cutoff because within your conference it's a certain record and then certain points. And I think I was like 120 points away from that cutoff, so I was super close. Again, right. Winning record, decent enough points, made it okay. I think somewhat of success, but no, I haven't actually made a Scott Fish Bowl playoff yet.
Okay. I last year I played was my first year playing, and I made the playoffs, and then I think I had Kyle Rudolph I drafted 12th. Kettle was my tight end. Of course, he didn't play, but I kept him because the rumor was he was coming back, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to use him, and so I had to use Kyle Rudolph, who scored 0 points, and I do believe Kirk Cousins had negative points for my playoff run. It was a good run. It was a really good run for me. So I don't even have strategy. Let's talk about superpowers that you wish you had. If you could have one superpower, Jennifer, what would it be and why?
I think this is probably pretty lame, but it is what it is. I'm not a superhero person at all. I'm not like a comic superhero, so this is a stretch for me. So it's probably lame to those of you that talk superhero stuff. But for me, it would just be the ability to fly because I'm broke and I love to travel, and I would love to be able to go wherever I could without having to pay for it. And also, I will say, environmentally, it would be a lot, a much cleaner world if we could all just fly wherever we needed to go solo without the use of airplanes and such.
I've never heard that application for it, and that is a really good one. Yes, it would make a much cleaner environment. Kyle, what would your superpower be?
So I am one of those aforementioned comic book nerds. Love X-Men.
Most fantasy football people are. I know I'm the exception. So
I love X-Men. Cyclops is probably my favorite comic book character. So part of the temptation is having the ability to shoot lasers from his eyes. Technically, it's his eyes are a portal to another dimension that is pure kinetic energy. but it's easier just to say laser beams from the eyes. But I do like Jennifer's answer, but I kind of want to take it to the next step. The ability to have telekinesis, I think, would function in ways. The ability to move objects with your mind. But I've also, from seeing comic book characters, like I think of Jean Grey from X-Men, for instance. She has telekinesis. She uses it sometimes to fly around because she can move herself, and she can kind of control her own flight that way. So I would kind of take that aspect and add to it. So that would be my answer, would be telekinesis, although laser beams from the eyes would be cool.
Laser beams from the eyes would be cool. Telekinesis would be exceptionally cool too. Jennifer, I have to ask, who do you write for, and what's your podcast?
I write for 4for4 Football, and my podcast is on 4for4 Football. It's called it's the Most Accurate Podcast, or TMAP for short. We just actually recorded this week's right before this, like 2 seconds before this. But yeah, it's great. I have my co-host is Brandon Niles, and then we also have another co-host, Chris Allen, and we kind of alternate from week to week. And it's just a general podcast about everything football, fantasy. Tonight, the one we just recorded was we had a injury expert on, so we just kind of went over all the different guys that are coming back from injury, what we think about them, that kind of stuff.
Is it on Mondays too? It's also
yes, it drops on. We record kind of whenever, but it drops every Monday night late, and it's just an audio, not a video. And
what time? I'm sorry.
I don't even know what time it drops. I'm horrible. I'm not sure.
Okay, but say again what it's called.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's called the Most Accurate Podcast, or TMAP. And it is actually called. It was named that way from the OG Matthew Berry actually named the podcast. So,
nice.
It used to be the podcast has been around for a long time. It used to be hosted by John Paulson, who is our resident ranker, and he's been Fantasy Pros Most Accurate for however many. He's got a bunch of accolades there. So Matthew Berry just kind of jokingly one day was like, you should call, whatever you do should be called the Most Accurate whatever. So that's how it became the Most Accurate Podcast.
And you write full time?
I do. Yeah. I'm actually, I'm senior writer and editor at 4for4. So I do a lot behind the scenes as well. And then I write a crap load of content.
That's excellent. Kyle, your podcast.
So I've already hinted at a little bit, the Full Press Fantasy Pod, general fantasy topics. I mean, we're kind of gearing up more to the redraft mode. I mean, Bob Lung, the consistency guide, generally from a redraft perspective. I guess really a couple episodes ago when the Julio Jones trade happened, I think that week we had 2 guests come on, and that was really redraft centric. Before that, we had kind of done a whole series on different Dynasty episodes, general strategy, rookie drafts, trade episode. I did an episode where I just went through my rosters, who were the most rostered players I had. One of them is not mentioned. So, the Full Press Fantasy Pod will go through season, be more weekly geared at that point. I know the upcoming in July, we'll do our tier episodes. So going through all 4 positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And my co-host Brad and I will just kind of compare our tiers at both positions and say, where are we kind of making these differences in draft? I've always felt tiers are kind of a more accurate representation of something I'm using in drafts rather than a set of rankings, for instance. Knowing how many players are in one tier at one position versus another helps those in out of position decisions, right? Okay, I've decided this is the running back I want, but do I back with the wide receiver? Again, looking at the tiers is helpful for that. I find those episodes could be really useful. So that'll be coming up shortly on the Full Press Fantasy Pod. Look for that. All those tiers kind of within the next month.
Okay. Speaking of which, Jennifer, what is your favorite format to play in fantasy?
It was interesting when I saw that question because I wasn't sure if you meant like format as far as like best ball, redraft, dynasty, or actual within redraft, like Superflex, or I wasn't sure really what you meant. So I just kind of, I guess I could just, yeah. I'm not a dynasty person. I do not play dynasty on purpose. People try to get me to play dynasty every season. As I said, I work full time in the industry. I can't. My brain needs to unwind after the season is over. I'm not going to start trading the day after the Super Bowl. I need like a month to get my brain set. So I definitely don't play Dynasty. Redraft has always been my thing. I love redraft. I do love best ball too, but I would say redraft, and I would say superflex. I really enjoy either superflex or 2QB. I just think it makes it a little more fun. I think if you're just starting out, any format is great, but this will be my 26th year playing fantasy football. So I think, single QBs or leagues are just something I can't really do anymore. It's not as fun, for me. So yeah, I'd say redraft, superflex, or 2QB would be my fave.
Do you know how many leagues you're in this year?
I'm not. Well, best ball is a different story. I've got. It's funny. We were just talking about it among 4for4 staff people. But I'm at about 40 best ball leagues so far. I'll probably get up to. I'm not sure where. But as far as like redraft, I'm only in like 4 or 5. I keep it pretty low because I have so many responsibilities during the season. I can't deal with all the waivers and stuff. But I've got a couple long-standing leagues. We actually have an all-ladies league. We need to get you in. That Liz Loza started last year. That was pretty fun. It was
I would love that.
Yeah, it was really fun. Last year was the first year. It was just a redraft, super flex. It was 14 of us. It was pretty fun. And then I'm actually in a league with Bob Long. It's funny that you say that. I'm in kind of a long-time league with him as well. So I think I'm only in like 4 redraft.
But you're in 40 best ball?
Right now, I'll get closer to the 100 range by the time we. But that's just you just draft and then forget it. So it's not like it's what I mean. I don't have to do anything with it. Once it's over, it's over. And some of them are like $1. Some of them are $3. It's not like I've got a life savings going every season. But.
Kyle, what is your favorite fantasy format?
So actually, there's a league in this format that Bob Lung's also in. So I do play with him in that. So my personal favorite format is contract and salary league. So I guess it does kind of fall into the Dynasty in that things are kept year to year. But unlike traditional Dynasty, where you automatically keep your entire roster going into the next season, obviously you make trades and change them, but like all the players you had you keep. Contract and Dynasty, it's a little different because first off, the draft isn't a snake order draft or the contract setting necessitates auction drafting. And I don't know if either of you have ever auction drafted or any of the listeners, viewers, but it is truly an incredible experience. And I mean, so Jen, for instance, the Scott Fish Bowl, right? Sitting at 112, I think you could pretty safely say you're not going to get Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
But in the auction format, everyone goes in and every possibility is open. You can, if you want to get a player, you can choose to spend as much as you can, your budget allows to get that player. So I think the idea of auctions are people could really build the teams the way they want to build them, or at least attempt to. Obviously, you lose out on the players, maybe like your team so much. So I think the contract salary format kind of necessitates that it happens. So not only every year are there rookie drafts, rookie picks are generally, and rookie drafting is generally done kind of traditionally in those leagues. But you also have a free agency auction every year for the players whose contract lengths expired. I know I play Reality Sports Online. It's the league where I do play with Bob Lung. Generally, that's something that commissioners could change, but generally there are guidelines on the auction. You can only limit the long-term contracts. It's so you can only put 1 4-year contract, 2 3-year contracts, like that. And again, that's totally customizable. But I love the fact I love doing auction drafts, and I love leagues that kind of necessitate that auction draft happens. And I love players, I love numbers, and as soon as the players have contract values attached next to their name, suddenly I like it even more. I just weird with the numbers, but that would be my favorite format.
Yeah, I actually like auction. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. I'm actually in one auction league as well, but I think it's kind of fun. I mean, the funny thing about the one auction league that I'm in, most of the people just get way too drunk, and so I just sit there and scoop up all the players, and they spend all their money because they're way too drunk before it even starts. They're all fired up, and I just sit back, and every year they're like, "God damn, Jen, you stole the draft." I'm like, "Well, you guys, you spent all your money in the first 10 minutes, and I scooped up all the players. What do you want?" And then every year they're like, "I'm not going to do it again," and then every year it happens. And I just laugh.
It's funny.
Lesson.
Sorry, Jennifer's talking about people drinking a lot, and then Larry Monkey, were your ears ringing? You just showed up. What up, Larry Monkey?
It's coincidence, I'm sure. Kyle, how many leagues are you in?
So right now, I think 8 Dynasty, and then I know last year I think the total number of Dynasty redraft ended up being at 17. I think it'll probably be close to there, but I don't think I'll surpass 20. So yeah, right probably around 14, 17. I think that's kind of where it's been the last couple of years. So really anywhere around that 15 number. I think it's It is a lot, but I don't find it too much yet. That's why I think keep it below 20. I think once it gets to over 20, that's when it would maybe become a problem.
And these 17 leagues, you put a different lineup in every week?
Yep.
That's just too much, man. I can't. The waivers, I just can't deal with it. It's too much.
So I also have the advantage, I don't have children, so I'm a little bit freer.
Honestly,
yeah. I've never really been a big party guy, so a fun Saturday night for me is going through those lineups and making those lineup decisions. And I've got spreadsheets on what are my factors that I'm looking at on the tough ones. I'll usually my process I'll usually Tuesday go through and instinct set them. Okay, what do I think? And then the ones where I'm not sure, I'll really dive into on a Saturday just before, once there's as much information. So that's my fun party time.
Wow. Okay. 17 leagues.
Yeah, that's a lot. So then you got Scott Fishbowl in there, which thankfully is a different day. It's kind of a separate waiver situation, but
I think that counted as part of my 14, 15, right. 17. I do count that in there. I exclude the best balls because they don't require that management, but anything that's dynasty contract or just straight up redraft, and the Scott Fishbowl would count in that. I think I count it in that number. So I kind of, once it gets in season, I really don't distinguish league formats like that, whether it's dynasty or, because especially when I'm going to lineup setting, I just want to set the best lineups. It doesn't matter if it's a dynasty or a redraft league. And I mean, the ones where I'm quote unquote tanking, then I'll know to dive in on the Saturdays on those. I'll literally just set them by instinct and not worry about them.
So I assume that you don't do DFS and betting too, because there's no way you can do all of that with
I do some DFS.
That's my problem is I see, because Saturdays I want, I spend, it's you have to build DFS lineups, and then there's now betting, and it's so much, and I do it all, but I can't imagine doing 17 leagues on top of that too. It's a lot.
Yeah, I generally don't do too many DFS lineups. I'll usually set one on Yahoo every week, and then DraftKings I'll do a few 50-50s or maybe throw in a GPP. So usually keep that about 5-6 a week. So that's not too much. And I know it's funny because the DFS, that is the money you're giving away, getting every week. But I generally I'll set them in, whatever. It's just money. Where it's the leagues, that's where I really focus my attention on.
Holy crap!
That's kind of a backwards approach, but sure.
Yeah, I know. That's 17 leagues. All right, let's talk Mill Street because we can. I'm going to go Jennifer first because I was feeling that Kyle is going to have a long. Jennifer. Top 3 Mill Street movies.
All right, so I'm old, so mine are probably going to be much different than you guys's because I'm old. So my number 1 is River Wild. Love River Wild. I don't know if either of you have seen River Wild. It's a 90s movie. Kevin Bacon. It's fantastic. Have you guys seen it?
I actually haven't. No.
Oh my God. Okay. You need to see it. It's amazing. So Meryl Streep plays this rafting river guide, and Kevin Bacon and I think it's John C. Reilly are they're fugitives escaped, and they basically at gunpoint make her take them down this ridiculous river that no one survives, and they make her do it, and it's amazing. It's a great movie. So that's my number 1. My number 2, you guys definitely have not seen it if you haven't seen that, is Kramer versus Kramer, which is a late 70s movie. Love that as a kid. I remember it. And then my third one, just because, is Devil Wears Prada, because, it's a good movie.
It's awesome in that. I have seen Kramer versus Kramer, and I think I may have seen River Wild, but because I love Kevin Bacon, and I can't imagine, have not seen anything that Kevin Bacon's in. But Kramer versus Kramer, wasn't that one of her first aha movies that people started noticing her in with Dustin?
Yeah, it was. I actually looked it up. It was 1979, but it was her and Dustin Hoffman, and it was a good movie. I remember it as a kid, and I remember watching it as a kid. I don't know if it was appropriate, but I do remember it.
I think it's appropriate. Kyle? Sir?
All right, so it's funny. I put 4. Number 4, just kind of this one. It's just kind of fun, and I'll quickly. I actually rank it at 4.2. It's complicated, and it's mostly just because Meryl Streep and Steve Martin get stoned, so that's why it's at 4.2.
Wow, 420. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, numbers, right? Number 3, I've got The Manchurian Candidate, and I think I feel like one of the things in that role. So she plays I think at that point it's the mother of a senator, but she's clearly got political ties on her own and really, and it's a movie about government conspiracy and all that, and it really shows a woman in a position of cunning intelligence, and obviously she's, her intentions aren't great, but very driven, and she's able to maneuver her way and be an integral part of the government without really being elected, right? So usually we see kind of like an evil genius kind of associated with men. Go ahead, Gladys.
So this is the remake of The Manchurian Candidate. Who plays the Frank Sinatra part? Is that Denzel's in this one?
Denzel, yeah.
Okay, then I got it. I'm sorry. I was just yeah.
Yeah,
who's her son? Who plays her son?
It's Levi Strebler.
Strebler?
Yeah, Strebler. Yeah.
Okay.
Bad with names.
That's a good movie.
Better with numbers.
She does play like an evil genius. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And it just, I think that's something that maybe, I guess early 2000s maybe was still kind of stereotyped as, the evil genius is a man, like a woman couldn't be an evil genius, right? But she kind of breaks that mold. And I've noticed a few other shows made afterwards, and I've seen portrayals of characters, and I could feel them like really calling back to how Meryl Streep portrayed that role. Like I think of Prison Break. In that show, the vice president is female, and she kind of has that same type of, obviously she's been elected, so it's a little more official, but like ingrained in conspiracy, and she's very, again, ulterior motives and willing to do whatever is capable. And I see her role, and I think, I could see the shades of Meryl Streep's performance in Manchurian Candidate. So I think it's been influential on other female in roles of political power since then, and kind of used that almost as like a blueprint framework. So I think very influential. I probably almost could have put it higher. Number 2, I think for fun, I have Devil Wears Prada. Same thing again. Maybe not so as let's say, certainly not as evil, but still the idea of she's the boss, she's in charge, and generally again we stereotype that's the man's role, but I think breaking those barriers. So Devil Wears Prada is a great movie. Number 1, I have this relates to what you're going to talk about. So I was actually going to reveal this anyway, Gladys, so you would have found out even if you hadn't asked. But so as a musician and as a teacher, the movie Music of the Heart really speaks to me in a lot of different ways. It's something I saw as a kid. So this is from the 90s, I think 1999. Just directed by Wes Craven of all people, but this is not a horror movie at all. So Meryl Streep, she plays an army wife, and I mean generally her life up to that point had been taking care of the kids and moving wherever her husband moved, playing in the military's band, and teaching music lessons. But then leaves her with the kids, and suddenly she's kind of has to fend on her own for the first time, and all she really knows is again teaching music. So she goes, they moved to New York and teaching in the inner city schools, and quite an experience for her. Like she generally worked with disciplined soldiers, not kids in these environments. So it's a huge shock for her, and learning how to become a teacher and learning what are some of the most important aspects to becoming a teacher, and also how music helps her and her family cope and all that. So Music of the Heart will always be my favorite Meryl Streep film.
Very good. I don't think I've ever seen that.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah.
I stopped. So I will watch River Wild and probably Kramer versus Kramer too. I don't think I've seen it. I am aware that legal movie, and I don't necessarily like that topic, but I'll definitely watch River Wild. But I encourage not only you two but also the listeners and viewers to watch Music of the Heart.
Music of the Heart. All right. So now we've come to what is my favorite part of this whole entire show, the rant episode. I just love it because I love people to be able to express whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. And Jennifer, we will start with you, ma'am.
It's funny. I meant to I saw that and I was going to come back to it, and then I didn't. So now I don't have anything. So I don't even know what to rant about.
It can be good or bad.
If you want to think about it for a sec, because I realize.
Why don't you go first? Because I just. On a normal basis, I can rant like my butt off. I just don't even know. At this exact moment, I'm just completely drawing a blank.
Kyle.
Well, it's actually, before I even get to my rant, I know Gladys, you asked a question earlier that I didn't answer. It was about Incubus, right? And favorite Incubus lyrics. So my favorite Incubus song is a song called "If Not Now When," and this is from an album that is actually the title track of the album. "If Not Now When" came out in 2012. I know Incubus started in the mid 90s, so it's a little bit newer for them. And one of the first times I had actually driven my wife, picked her up and drove her to my hometown, She took the bus to kind of halfway, and I picked her up, and that was one of the CDs that was playing. And I guess she didn't really like Incubus that much at that point, but something about that song and just our connection. And again, and this is like 9 years ago. Connection's still strong, thankfully, happily. And actually, If Not Now ended up being the first dance at our wedding. And I think that the chorus is, if not now, when will I? Oh, geez, now I'm blanking. If not now, when will I stand up and see the bright lights? Like when is your moment coming? Like you stop waiting and just take it. And I kind of feel like for us, I mean, our relationship, it could have just been something passing, or it could have been, okay, if in that moment, kind of deciding. I think for her, she says that's the weekend where she really fell in love with me. So, like, I think, for both of us, is that kind of song represents like almost like a really key moment of it clicking for both of us, of like, this is the person I want to be with. But I mean, that's kind of what the lyrics talk about. But for one particular lyric I like by them, it's from a different song called Nice to Know You. That's kind of about, leaving everything behind and kind of going your own way. But I like alliterations, and the end of the first verse ends with, perspective pries once weary eyes and gives you wings. So, if you change your perspective, weary eyes, you see the world as anew. Sometimes you can go to some amazing places and fly there. So I love Incubus for a lot of reasons. And that song, If Not Now, one of the best vocal performances I've ever heard too. And when I saw Incubus live, they played it, and Brandon Boyd was just as incredible singing it live, sustained notes, and it was truly powerful. So love Incubus. What up, Doc?
I don't know. I have to say, I don't know Incubus at all. It's funny. There's a lot of bands in the fishbowl that I'm just like, God, I'm in a small little bubble of music, and
small little fishbowl.
I am, but I actually don't like fish, and so that's that. You know what? That's gonna be my rant. I actually ranted about this on Twitter when it happened. So I'm a big Widespread Panic fan. Widespread Panic and Fish are very, like, they're rival jam bands. It's really stupid, right? But it is what it is. And I was pissed that Fish made it to Scott Fishbowl and Widespread did not. That made me unhappy. And then, of course, some Fish guy, of course, one of my mentions, like, oh, of course, all this stuff. It's a ridiculous rivalry. It does exist, though. And so that, I guess that's my mini rant, is that Fish made it and Widespread did not, and they're both, very similar jam bandy type. Because Widespread Panic was my first choice, which did not happen. So then I had to pivot to the Grateful Dead, and then my second choice, once we knew what they were, was Spinal Tap. I thought that would have been fun to be in that. I love those movies.
Oh yeah, super funny.
I like that rant because it's
a mini rant that a lot of people won't even get or care about, but it's important to me.
Is that it's important to you. All right, and I want to thank you both for being here. Jennifer, I want to thank you for taking out time from from one show to the other just to be here. That means a lot. Thank you so much. And for those of you who wonder why my nom is Kyle, it's because I found out he was a high school teacher today, and it made me so happy. I don't know why. It just did. It made me happy to know that Kyle, who I listen to and who knows more than almost anyone I know, like stats-wise, was a high school teacher. It's just great. I love teachers. My sister's a teacher. So anyway, that was kind of a rant. I'm sorry. I just went off on that. And I want I don't know what happened. I want to thank Jennifer she had a show right before this one, and she was kind enough to not take a break and jump on our show after hers. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. And Kyle, I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone. G, thank you for listening. Dynasty Hot Sauce Pod, thank you for coming, your comments. And hi, Doc. Thank you for listening to, and everyone else, thank you for listening. Next week you will see Kyle on the Fantasy Pod and Jennifer's show that comes on Monday too. You can listen to it. Tell me again the name.
It's the most accurate podcast. Or Team App. It's every Monday night on 444.
So yeah, you guys can listen to like all the shows, and you don't have to pick one above the other. We appreciate you. Thank you again, you guys. I will see you on Twitter and Fantasy World. Kyle, Jennifer, it has been my pleasure. Thank you both. And
Bye,
we will
everybody.
Bye. Good night.